The sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
All right. It's time. Not only time for Reckless Speculation Thursday, it's time for all four of us to be in the same studio at the same time for the first time. I don't know. Did we do this in December or was Doogie... Is he remote? No, I think you were in studio. I don't know.
I don't remember.
But
it's possible. You know what, Phil? Honest to God, you get up there in age. I'm now 42.
Oh, you're getting
Days,
so old.
weeks, months, years, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember a thing.
Wait till
it's
52,
possible,
Dukes. Wait till 52.
It's a disaster
It just
when you're
gets
52.
worse.
So, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. This is Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports, entertainment, therapy, and speculation. So, we have, less than a week until the NFL league year. If you missed it on Purple Daily today, we did a deep dive into the latest buzz surrounding Kirk Cousins and the quarterback carousel. But we welcome in our friend, Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, the Scoop podcast. And I'm just going to, I don't know where this conversation is going to go, but I'm going to start by asking, the Vikings haven't really done anything yet. They haven't restructured any contracts. They haven't made any trades. They are $15 million over the cap. A bunch of things have to happen in the next handful of days. What are you hearing?
Well, you're right, Phil. I mean, they need to become cap compliant by next Wednesday afternoon. So you're right. Moves are coming. This new regime was not brought in to just roll with the status quo. So change is coming. I am told on yesterday, they met for about 10 hours. They being the Vikings front office, some of the coaches that are in town. Some coaches are out of town at some pro days. Yesterday was a busy pro day. Like, I know they had their assistant defensive line coach in Little Rock, Arkansas for Arkansas's pro day. So some coaches are out and about, but I am told they met for upwards of 10 hours yesterday on personnel matters. They are meeting again today. Something as minute, Phil, as whether they will tender kicker Greg Joseph. Like, to me, it's
hopefully they didn't spend 10 hours on that.
Borderline no-brainer. Like, it's a little bit of a healthy number. It's $2 million and change, but, like, I think they have a pretty good kicker, regardless of what took place week 2 in Arizona last year. But I think they have a pretty good kicker. But, like, they haven't even told Joseph, his camp, what the decision is. So these meetings are ongoing. But make no mistake, if you're a fan, get ready because moves are coming.
So, Dukes, do we think at this point, it's great, it's so delicious. Do we think at this point, Darren, that the Vikings are pretty much dead set on keeping Kirk, which you could certainly interpret from like what both of us have been told at different times? Or, as Phil and I discussed on Purple Daily today, do we think that they are intent on keeping Kirk for now, but if the right offer comes along and they go down that path, that he actually could be moved? Because I think there's two different train of thoughts here, and things are so fluid. I'm not sure which one I buy completely, if either of them at this point.
Well, I mean, do I think he's completely untouchable, Judd? No. If the Colts call, the Vikings have gotten calls. Like, I'm positive about that. There have been inquiries going back to Indianapolis in person, prior, now after. Like, do I think they are instantly hanging up the phone? I don't. But signs have been pointing for a bit here that Kirk Cousins is going to be this team's quarterback in 2022. So I know I went on the record mid-January, so going back now 6-7 weeks, it was a write that down that I will be wrong on. That I predicted back then that Cousins would be traded. But now with the news, developing, or at least reading the tea leaves, the scuttlebutt from the last handful of weeks, my prediction for mid-January appears to be off. That now I would say, I'll write that down, that I do think Cousins is here in 2022. I'm not positive he'll be here beyond 2022.
See, and I don't think again, maybe this is just me trying to speak something into existence, but I don't think you're wrong yet. You look at, we talked about this on Purple Daily today. If you want a full 45-minute, just complete deep dive, but where we landed here in our discussion was, look at the quarterback desperate teams right now, or I guess a way to rephrase that would be, look at the teams that are trying to win a Super Bowl or at least win a division and compete in the playoffs and have either no quarterback or have low faith in their current quarterback. And that list is Colts, Steelers, Panthers, people laugh at, but that's a weak division. They're about to fire a coach if they don't win. They're looking to take a step forward. The Buccaneers without Tom Brady. The Seahawks now probably more in a rebuild mode, but the Browns are in this discussion. I mean, there's 4 or 5 teams that are looking for an average at worst quarterback, which, Kirk Cousins is a lot of things. He's not a below average quarterback. He's definitely above average or somewhere in that mix. So 4 or 5 teams in the next week or the next 2 or 3 months looking for an upgrade at quarterback, and the only available options are Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, who can't throw a football for 4 months because of shoulder surgery, Deshaun Watson, we'll find out more on Friday, the bridge bin of like Mariota, Minshew, Bridgewater, or a draft class that people are low on and don't really see a day one, like week 1 starter in. So I feel like the Kirk Cousins discussion is just getting started. But is this just me trying to manifest something, Doogie?
No, not necessarily. I don't think you're nuts, Phil. But what then is the alternative?
For the Vikings?
For the Vikings.
A blank canvas that I will be happy to stare
and
at
I've
for the
seen
next
you tweet
2 months.
that, but until I hear that Ziggy and Mark Wilf are willing to fully hit the reset button, that they're comfortable not necessarily competing, especially at a high level in 2022, I need to know what the alternative is. Now, I do think Friday is interesting. I'll tell you this much. Maybe it's somewhat reckless speculation, but I can tell you there are some Deshaun Watson fans at TCO Performance Center.
Wow.
But
wait.
You can't.
Wow, dude.
Maybe
you
that's
can't
reckless
do
speculation.
anything.
You don't come into our house and do that and say maybe, Darren.
You can't do anything, though, until there's clarity on the legal front. But if somehow
You waited 7 minutes to drop that?
With a maybe. Maybe they like Deshaun Watson.
He would be an upgrade, right? So that would be an alternative. You move Cousins, you upgrade with Watson, but there is so much that needs to take place in Houston on his legal front before we can even recklessly speculate about any sort of Deshaun Watson trade.
But there's a couple like fairly credible, at least blue check mark, athletic. There's been like 2 or 3 reporters that have said if Friday brings clarity, and I would guess that if Friday brings, I would think lump sums of money to to put this whole thing to bed, right? Oh, is it a grand jury?
Yeah, so
okay.
if they don't indict, he's halfway home.
He's going to have to settle those cases.
Yeah, he'll have to
right?
settle the cases.
Right,
correct.
But basically, if this goes the right way for him on Friday,
Yep.
that a deal could be in place as soon as Wednesday of next week. There are reports out there, so it might happen fast with Deshaun Watson.
Well, I mean, if that does happen, like there's going to be one heck of a market for Watson. Like, I would be shocked if Pete Carroll isn't interested in Seattle.
Carolina will be.
Carolina would be as well. Those would be the 2 at the top of the list. But, yeah, I mean, if you want to make a case for Indianapolis, maybe some other locale that you listed as a quarterback-needy franchise, fine. But I would put Seattle, certainly near the top of the list. I really would. But, we need that clarity. But that would be an alternative, right? If you wanted to go down that path. That's why I'm saying, I don't have any sense that Kwesi is hanging up the phone. If Chris Ballard calls, if you name the general manager of a quarterback-needy team calls, Kwesi is listening. But, I think the asking price is the moon. I think it would take a ton. I think it would take at least what Detroit got for Matthew Stafford. Maybe more. I don't think the Carson Wentz trade is a comp. I don't think the Vikings are moving Cousins for 2 third-round picks.
Why? But so my question would be why. So if they've and maybe they are still entertaining an extension, because I just feel like it doesn't seem like it makes sense for either side, right? Cousins wants to maximize his earning value. He wants to sign short-term, inflexible, high-money contracts. I think Kwesi is smart enough, analytical enough to know that it's going to be really hard to build a roster around that type of contract for the 14th best quarterback in there. So I'm assuming that extension is off the table. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And if your options are play out the last year of his contract and then wave goodbye after 2022, get a 3rd-round comp pick, let's say, that you don't actually get your hands on until 2024, or trade him for whatever you can get now, I would accept the 2 third. Like if the 2 third-round picks that were involved in the Carson Wentz trade, if that winds up being the best offer right now, I take it. I take it over extension, and I take it over playing him for 1 year, eroding the roster, and letting him walk for a comp pick 2 years from now.
By the way, do we know it's for sure a third-round pick, comp pick?
What would it, I mean? That's
likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought maybe it was a lower round, but yeah, they could get some sort of comp pick. Yeah. We know they're not using the franchise tag on Cousins. The number would be $60-something million, so we know that that's not a possibility. Yeah, I'm with you, Phil. I would take 2 third-round picks if the alternative is an extension on his terms. Like, there's still no signs pointing to him willing to take some sort of discount, right? But there has been dialogue. The Vikings met with his representation in Indianapolis. His agent Mike came here to town a couple weeks ago. They broke bread at the Omni Hotel, the hotel right next to TCO Performance Center. So there have been multiple in-person meetings. An extension has come up. I think the Vikings would be open-minded, very open-minded to extending Cousins on their terms, not on Kirk's terms.
Correct.
That's why this situation remains so fascinating even many weeks later.
So that's path A. Let's go down path B now. Because if you keep Kirk and Dukes, to your point off the top of the segment, this team, I believe by 3 p.m. on March 16th, which is Wednesday, if I have my days right, has to be cap compliant. And I believe Over the Cap has them at approximately $16 million right now in excess of the cap. So let's say Kirk Cousins, nothing happens. Let's just say he's still got his contract, that the $45 million figure kicks in. Oh boy, that's not good, but it's there. Okay, path B is someone or someones more likely have to go. Like, you are not going to just call in everybody and say, we're reworking you, we're going to run this back. People have to go. In the last week, just in different conversations and exchanges, I have heard the names of Kendricks, Hunter, and Thielen as all potentially being, at some point, not all three, but all potentially being gone in some way, shape, or form if this does not work. Because you have to become compliant, you can't just shuffle and shuffle and shuffle. Like as much as people want to claim the cap is fake, at some point in time it comes due. What are you hearing on that as far as who could be restructured, renegotiated, and flat out gone? Because I find it intriguing that I have heard that there is a chance that Danielle Hunter might just flat out be gone. I'm not applauding that. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm telling you that it's so fluid that I think they're considering all of these different options.
Well, I think they are too. Now, I've been on record for a few weeks. I continue to feel this way, that Adam Thielen is going to be back. Not at his current number, but he is going to restructure, take a pay cut, however you want to classify it. I do see Adam Thielen here in 2022. But, change is coming.
Right.
They didn't hire Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, Kevin O'Connell to run back the status quo for a franchise that has missed the postseason 3 of the last 4 years. So I hope fans grasp that changes are coming. And, Judd, the key word is fluid, right? That all sorts of different possibilities are being bandied about. Could Danielle Hunter be traded? 100%. Could Eric Kendricks be traded? 100%. I'd be surprised on Dalvin, but that's another name. Jason Lockenfor of CBS certainly has sources. He's not Adam Schefter. He's not Ian Rappaport. He's not Tom Pelissero.
He used to be 12 years ago, right? Wasn't he the chosen one for a while?
I mean, CBS used him on their pregame show on Sundays for a stretch. He certainly has contacts. Now, I can tell you for what it's worth, 2 contacts, 2 high-ranking league officials, non-Vikings officials, but they work for teams, told me within the last 48 hours that they have not had any dialogue with the Vikings on Danielle Hunter or Eric Kendricks. Doesn't mean that those names aren't coming up, but that these 2 teams, one for sure, by the way, has a desperate need for a pass rusher. Now, I don't know if the Vikings would necessarily do business with them on Danielle Hunter, but the point is this team can use a pass rusher. You would think at least an inquiry would be made one way or another, but somebody I trust told me no. Just at that point, as of 48 hours ago, they had not had any dialogue with the Vikings. I'll add Phil. I told Judd this on Tuesday, but I'll tell you, somebody close to Danielle told me he's fine. He's open-minded to playing in a 3-4. That this change to a 3-4 base, even though they'll have plenty of 4-3 looks, doesn't bother Danielle.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that he's going to be here this year. Would a trade surprise me? Absolutely not. If we have news in the next 48 hours that Danielle Hunter is being traded, I will not be shocked one bit.
Yeah, I wonder. It's so tough because he's in his prime before the injuries 2 years ago. One of the best defensive players in the NFL, and ideally you would he's a guy that you would build around for the next 5 years. But he's played 7 games in 2 years, so I wrestle with: do you want to try and rework the contract again and just see if he can be healthy and just get back on his Hall of Fame trajectory? Or do you trade him for what you can get because you're not confident he can be the same player that he was, or he's not as healthy as he was? This would really come down to what exactly are you getting? I mean, if somebody wants to offer a first-round pick, all right, I guess you probably have to take it.
Well, that's a no-brainer, right? If you're offered a first-round pick. By the way, Declan, you're killing me. Prior Lake is up 5-0. I need Duke Syracuse. I'm high maintenance.
Oh, sorry, Dukes.
Duke Syracuse was a 2-point game with 7 minutes to go. Alex Bump. I think he's a Vermont kid from Prior Lake. Prior Lake is really good. They weren't good earlier this year, but they eliminated my guy Lee Smith and Eden Prairie, and now they're just kicking Cretan's tail. This will be an upset, at least seating-wise.
That's a shame.
Yeah, Prior Lake up 5-0 in the third period. So, yeah, I'm looking for Duke Syracuse.
This high school hockey update brought to you by 45.
It actually is brought to you by Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Federated's been around for over 100 years, based in Owatonna, Minnesota, helping business owners. They are the protection up front, the offensive line for your business. They're all about risk management, and they're all about bringing some of the smartest people in the industry to your business to help. So federatedinsurance.com, and remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. There it is.
All right, I will remember that. Declan, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yes, I need to see the end of this Duke Syracuse game. But
Focus.
Phil, if you're offered a
Darren.
first-round pick, I'm not capable of focusing, Judd. That's been an issue for a long time. Phil, if you're offered a first-round pick, I would be surprised if the Vikings are offered a first-round pick for Danielle. If you're offered a first-round pick, that's an easy one. That's one you say, yeah, sure, so be it. Danielle, thank you for everything. We'll take that first-round pick.
Yeah, man. Dalvin Cook's name also came up in the Lock and Four report. That's another interesting one. In his prime, can't stay healthy, but Judd and I pulled up a list on Purple Daily of the top running backs from 2018, in rushing yards, and all of them, Saquon Barkley, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, have fallen off a cliff. And so, if somebody wants to offer you some sort of pick for Dalvin Cook, I'd probably sign up for it. I don't know. What do you make of that one?
I would be surprised if he gets moved. Now, Palomalu, who loves him, the former Vikings running backs coach, is in Vegas, but they have Josh Jacobs. Arizona could use a running back, depending on what they do with the former Steeler. Do they re-sign Connor, or is he gone? But Arizona's in win-now mode. So I can make a case for some teams potentially, but if you're asking me yes or no, do I see Dalvin Cook here or not here in 2022? I see him here.
I think the important thing, though, and it's what makes this just so fantastic, is it's very clear everything is on the table. I mean, short of trading Jefferson, which is not going to take place, everything right now, because new coach, new GM, everything's a possibility. And I love that fact. I feel that this team had a good run and it wasn't great, but they took their shot and that's now done. And look, the Wilfs are going to continue to say, because in their heart they want to believe it, we're going to be competitive, we're going to be good, and you know what? There's now 7 playoff seats per conference available. So they could make the playoffs. But as far as the potential for change in every area, it's there now. And I think that probably scares and annoys and bothers some fans. I think this is probably going to be the greatest 3-month span to be a Viking fan in a long time. Though.
Embrace it.
Exactly.
The fan base should embrace this.
Exactly. You can get a new jersey. Just have Cook. Somebody's going to get his jersey. In fact, he's changing, I think, from 33 to 4, right, Dukes? So if you got a 33, you're going to have to rip his name off regardless. So embrace it, and somebody new get their name on that. So, but I mean, this is exciting, and I think it's fantastic that it's very clear that these guys are weighing a multitude of options, which is 1,000% what they should be doing. I love this.
That's why they're taking this thing up until almost the very last second. Like, could they release Michael Pierce right this second? They could, but they're still exploring, okay, can we trade Michael Pierce?
Bingo.
If they don't find a trade partner, I think that's another name to keep an eye on. Now, there is some dead money there, but you can save, $5-6 million on Michael Pierce. I don't have over the cap up on my on my screen right now, but it's like in the vicinity of $6 million. So that's what's taking place right now at TCO. Like all these conversations. Like, I'm sure Kwesi would like to get out and about to some of these pro days. Like, yesterday was a very busy pro day. The Vikings had scouts at 5 different pro days yesterday. I'm sure at some point he'd like to, but he can't. There's bigger business to worry about. But, yeah, like, you brought Kwesi in for sake of change. Like, in this instance, embrace change. Change is not a bad thing in this case, right? So some change is coming. Like, I can't stress this enough. Like, there's a reason why they brought in a new GM, a new head coach, right? Brought in Gregson as a consultant, a former GM, reworking the dynamics of the front office in different ways. It's because the status quo didn't work. If they wanted to run this thing back, Zim and/or Spielman would have been retained. So change is coming. I wish I could tell you right this second, I know exactly what is going to happen. I can give you, some inclination, some strong inclination, right? Like, I feel pretty good, not 100%, but pretty good about the Thielen prediction. I have a hard time seeing Pierce here this year. Right now, signs point to Cousins being here. I don't know on Hunter. I don't know on Kendricks. I wish I could tell you strongly one way or another, but it's because these conversations are literally happening right now. Maybe they're on a lunch break right now. We're talking here at 1 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, but like these exact conversations are happening at TCO Performance Center. That's why it's fluid.
Yeah. We got to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, 6 consecutive wins for the first time since 2004. Since the KG, Sam Cassell, Latrell Sprewell Timberwolves. They have won 6 games in a row. And games that were once like these bad opponents that they've been playing recently, that were once very much nail-biters or they would fall asleep for a half or whatever, they're just beating the absolute crap out of bad teams. So, I don't know. Chris Finch is now exactly 500. He's the second winningest coach percentage-wise behind Flip Saunders in franchise history. What do you make of this team? They're sort of destined to, it looks like, line up playing at home in the playing game against the Clippers as of right now, but they do have 2 games against the Mavericks. The Mavericks just got smoked last night. So they could conceivably catch the Mavericks if they can win both those games, but I don't know how much are you buying into this team, Dukes?
They have another game against Denver as well. So is it in the realm of possibilities? Sure, but like signs point to them locking in at 7, that they're not going to jump to 6 or 5. So that means they are in the play-in. What I wonder the most about right now is Paul George. So Ty Lue is on record now saying, the Clippers coach, that he's not bringing Paul George back if Paul can't come back during the regular season. The Clippers only have like 12 or 13 regular season games left. So at what point do the Clippers maybe make the determination, even though I thought he'd come back, but is it possible Paul George doesn't return this year for the Clippers? We also don't know about Norman Powell. Now, Robert Covington should be back at some point. I still think that would be a tricky game, but the way the Wolves have been playing at Target Center, you like their chances to win that game against the Clippers. And all signs point to that, right? That it's setting up for April 11th, April 12th, whatever the date is, that week of April, that the Wolves are going to host the Clippers, 7 seed versus 8 seed. Winner gets the 7 seed. Now, if you're a Wolves fan, keep rooting for Memphis. I wouldn't be scared of Memphis. Memphis is 1 game up on Golden State, a half game up on Golden State. So it's close. Now, I would not want to play the Warriors. I know the Wolves have beaten the Warriors a couple times in the last 5-6 weeks. Draymond is coming back here pretty quick. Clay is back. Curry, like, I wouldn't want to play the Warriors. That's just me. I wouldn't. But do I think they can give the Grizzlies a 6 or 7 game series? 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, how much fun would that be? Just think about the games this year, Wolves and Grizzlies. Those games have been super entertaining. But yeah, this is fun. They have the same record through, what is it now, 67 games? Have they played 67, 15 to go in the regular season? It's the same record as the 17-18 season. The last time they went to the playoffs, where they won that last game against Denver, get into the playoffs. So they have the same exact record through this amount of games. But this just seems like it's got a much different feel than that Jimmy Butler-led team from 4 years ago. So yeah, enjoy the ride. It seems like fans are embracing the Wolves as much as they have in a long, long time. Target Center has been rocking. I was at the Philly game a couple weeks ago. Now they lost by 20-something points, but the atmosphere that night, like, there was a legitimate buzz. So this is really, really enjoyable, and you can see a core that can sustain for a bit. I had Glenn Taylor on the Scoop podcast earlier this week. We talked for about 30 minutes.
Yeah, tell Phil what Glenn said about it.
Well, yeah, I'll get to the headline from that, but
yeah, good stuff.
You know, like Glenn said, hey, like, we have flexibility in 2 years, which points to, I don't know if they're going to extend D'Angelo Russell this summer. Russell will want an extension this summer, but you think about the option they have on the Beasley contract a couple years out, Russell then expiring, Patrick Beverley expiring. So they're setting up to have a good amount of cap space in a couple years, but you still have Ant, you still have McDaniels, you still have Cat. We wonder if Cat will make All-NBA. If he makes All-NBA, now Jokic and Embiid will make first team, second team. Although, could you just put Cat in at forward? Bobby Marks brought that up on my podcast a few weeks ago. Like, if Cat is worthy, do you have to put him at center, or could you find a way to maneuver him in as a forward? But it'll probably come down to him and Gobert for third team All-NBA center. To me, Cat is very deserving. If Cat makes All-NBA, he's eligible for like $35 million more on an extension. I asked Glenn Taylor about that. He said, hey, I'm always rooting for the player. So, hey, if Cat makes it, so be it. You know, if that's what we have to pay him, so be it. The headline, though, Phil, from my conversation with Glenn, I said, hey, Glenn, is everything still on path December of 2023? Mark Lowry, Alex Rodriguez to take over as majority owners? He gave me a one-word answer. Probably.
What is that? Probably?
So then I said, I paused for a second. It caught me off guard. I expected a little bit more than a one-word answer. So I needed a couple seconds to compose myself. I said, Glenn, there's some gray area there. Does that mean they could take over sooner than 21 months from now? Or would that be later than 21 months? Like you say, probably. That's not 100%. Like the plan at the September press conference was December of 23. And he pretty much, now I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, you know, both possibilities are in play. But like, I thought probably was a very interesting answer to when I said, hey, is the plan still December of 2023 for Mark and Alex to take over as majority owners?
I think Glenn's been eating a little too much of that Mankato potato salad or something. Okay?
Lasagna.
Becky makes a great potato salad. Okay?
I love potato salad. Lasagna, too.
They still are exploring the possibility of bringing in somebody to help with rebounding. I know there's been a little bit of dialogue, more so initiated by his side, but Willie Cauley-Stein is out there. So that might be one name to keep an eye on. I personally would bring back Greg Monroe, but there hasn't been much movement on that the last couple days. But there was a conversation going back maybe a week or so ago. So anyway, the Wolves are still at least listening to agents pitching their clients.
Dude,
that I can tell you.
We owe a little bit of love to Malik Beasley. We've been very, very hard on him. I think rightfully so, the first half of the season, as he tried to figure out, like he just... when he's not shooting well, it's like he doesn't really figure out what else to do on the court. But last night, he knocked down 11 threes, which is the most threes anyone's ever hit in a Timberwolves game ever, and the most threes anyone's hit in a game this season so far. So if he's heating up, and he's been hot for like a month, and he stays hot for the next month, he's the type of dude that can just, he's one of those guys that could win a playoff game for you because he's hot. So
well, and go back to the trade deadline when Brad Stevens in Boston tried to pluck Malik out of here. So I know Sachin Gupta has taken some heat, for me included, for not doing anything at the trade deadline. But you think about the inactivity, the decisions not to pull the trigger on some scenarios, that's now paying off. I mean, he could have said, hey, give me Josh Richardson, give me Aaron Nesmith or Romeo Langford. sure, it's time to move on from Malik, that this slump is maybe more indicative of who he is. I don't think he can snap out of this slump. Hey, we'll ship him out east. But, Gupta said no. By the way, Gupta was in Atlanta earlier this week scouting overtime elite, so he's been getting out and about a lot more. The Wolves have scouts at all these conference tournaments. Manny Rohan is at the Big Ten tournament. Zarko Durasic is at the Big 12 tournament. And he's also going to make it to Fort Worth for the American tournament. That's Houston, those teams in that conference, Houston being the best team. Then assistant GM Joe Branch right now is at the SEC tournament. So lots of draft scouting work happening this week for the rest of the month. The Wolves have 4 draft picks in June.
Hey, Dukes, last thing. The Gopher basketball team, which cratered, which was not a shock. What is your sense in talking to people, though, about the confidence or feeling about the program being on the right track with Ben? Because I'll give them this. They stunk, but they worked hard. They won some games that I definitely didn't expect them to. And despite their lack of success, I couldn't help but come away with it feels like there's a positive feeling about the direction. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
Heck, I'll give you an example. So I'm at the Philadelphia 76ers practice on campus. So they practiced at the U of M practice facility the night before that Friday night game a couple weeks ago. So Dave Yeager, Staples, Minnesota native, is an assistant coach for Philadelphia. So Dave and I caught up unprompted. We were sitting there in the Gophers practice facility, but he told me all this stuff he has heard that's all positive about Ben Johnson. Like, I thought it was interesting how unprompted Dave Yeager brings up Ben Johnson's name to me.
Good.
And that's just one example. They grind. It's him. Yep. It's his staff on the recruiting front. Now they have something they can sell to recruits. Not necessarily seeing ball go through basket, but you can see the offensive sets.
Yes.
He runs, the plan, how he likes to use his guards, his forwards. They'll need to work the portal. I'll tell you, next year could be another semi-long year. But I think about Rutgers a couple years ago, where Rutgers was 3 years ago, where Rutgers is now. I think there's every reason to think the Gophers can do that. What's Rutgers, a 5 seed in the Big Ten tournament? Why can't the Gophers in 2 or 3 years be where Rutgers is?
I feel like we say
today.
that all the time. Why can't if we just give the Gophers a couple more years?
It used to be Wisconsin. Why can't
You're
we
right,
be Wisconsin?
Phil, because if I'm going to play that game, we can cite any number of examples where it hasn't worked, right? Where somebody takes over and it's rock bottom for a while. So I'm using the good examples, but there are bad examples in that regard. But there's faith from my standpoint because I know how hard they grind on the recruiting front.
Yeah.
They will work the portal. I'm positive there's going to be some recognizable names, guys with ties to the Twin Cities in the portal that I think the Gophers can bring home. You have one heck of a building block next year with Jamison Battle. I think he's legit all conference next year. Parker Fox is doing very well coming back from ACL surgery. It's a leap, D2 to D1, but he was one of the 5 best players in Division II. Those guys can play Division I high major. So I think Parker Fox is a nice building block. Isaiah Enan, I think, is a bench piece, but he's a rotation guy at least next year, so he'll be coming back from injury, but they have to work the portal. They need to find a lead guard. They probably need a big man. Trayton Thompson, I think, has a chance, but he's probably more a bench guy next year, but I think he can be a rotation guy, the native of Alexandria. But there's enough there to like where I can see the semblance of what they're trying to accomplish that I'm more curious to see where they're at 2-3 years from now, not necessarily next year.
Yeah. All right, Dukes. Well, the next time we talk, so you guys will do your Tuesday scoop session, and then we'll do a Thursday one. I'm guessing we'll be reacting to things actually happening with the Minnesota Vikings.
Hey, can I throw in a little reckless speculation from one of our former friends, former friend of the show, but someone we've mentioned on the show before?
Reckless speculation.
Evan Massey, the all-plugged-in Evan Massey, just tweeted this out 30 minutes ago. Per source, the Vikings are expected to pursue Bears free agent Akeem Hicks in free agency.
Oh, then Pierce is
Well, he's
gone.
a very logical fit. Just when thinking about him anchoring the middle of that 3-4, there's, you want to just connect logical dots. Akeem Hicks makes a ton of sense. Phil, will we have Major League Baseball scuttlebutt to kick around early next week?
I'm okay without baseball for several weeks. I'm good.
Yeah, but not several months. Several weeks, fine. But
honestly,
there does seem to be a little bit of momentum today. I can tell you the Twins are ready to rock and roll. Now, fans are probably laughing. But
ready to rock and roll what?
Yeah,
Doing what?
as soon as transactions are allowed, I had a Twins, a high-ranking official tell me the other day, they're ready to pounce. 2 starters, 2 relievers, and a shortstop. They did acquire the medical records before the lockout of the best remaining free agent starter, Carlos Rodon, Kikuchi, a guy they had interest in before he went to Seattle a couple years ago. They also have his medical record. So they've been doing their due diligence behind the scenes. There's a lot of trade talk that they can revisit as well, but it is going to be nuts. I mean, let's just say that this momentum is legit, that we have a deal by later today.
Which we might.
Like, transactions could begin, no joke, as soon as late tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's being overly optimistic. I get it, because there's still issues they need to solve. This thing could still go on for many weeks. But I'm just saying, if any of this momentum is to be believed, like, transactions could happen. No joke, Phil.
Okay.
As soon as late tonight.
I want to ask real quick, Judd and Declan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've talked Twins on this show. If we set the over-under at 3.5 since last July or like trade deadline, I think I would take the under. I think we've talked Twins like 2 or 3 times total since July on this show.
And this momentum crap kills me. It's the same reporters being fed the same crap from the owners so that then they can say, well, we thought we were close. It's a rope-a-dope. It's BS.
Well, I agree.
Go home.
Yeah.
The international
Then it's
draft
one side
thing,
providing 90% of the material that's out there. I agree with you on that.
They legitimately didn't bring this up to the players. They said it's a non-starter, take it off, and then as soon as we got momentum, they keep bringing things back.
John Heyman, who is one of the mouthpieces
and
for
Nightingale
owners,
just tweeted.
He said, we are down to the 2, word from an agent, we are down to the 2-yard line. Others agree things are promising. So we'll see. We'll see.
All these people are despicable. Get out of my sight.
I'm just telling you, whenever the lockout ends, it will end at some point. Whether it's today, tomorrow, 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. I do think we'll have Major League Baseball again at some point. I'm just saying, whenever the lockout ends, the Twins are ready to pounce.
All right, Dukes. Great stuff.
And you always pounce.
Great reckless speculation session here. You can
You're
find
welcome.
Doogie as part of the 5 Eyewitness News sports team and also the Scoop podcast. Catch him with Glenn Taylor on the most recent episode. See you, Doogie.
Okay, see you, boys. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
All
All
right,
right.
Darren.
So, man, reckless speculation Thursday.
Hey,
it just hits harder this
I just
time
got
of
a
year.
note, and I have not heard this because we were not able to consume a show yet. I just got a note that said that Pat McAfee today,
Yes.
all in on Cousins.
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
Yes, I
Hold on.
listened to the clip.